Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Hello and welcome everybody back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I am your host, Adam Cousins, and today is a very special Saturday interview, especially for me. Today on the show, we are speaking with someone who I've literally got a lot of DVDs off of, and he's not necessarily a major star in wrestling or anything like that. It was what we're pretty much doing now. Just he created the kind of podcast in a way, more of a U-shoot or a Kayfabe, or even done timeline events. Nowadays, you can find him on the Kliq podcast with the Hall of Famer is Kevin Nash. What a co-host that is to have, and we'll touch on him very shortly. And he's also just written a very interesting book about Todd Gordon. Todd is God. Sean Oliver, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Well, it's good to be here. It's good to be across the pond.
Yes.
In a digital sense, leaving the colonies for a little bit and enjoying you here. Thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome. It's been a personal thing of mine to get you on. It was like I messaged you like 3 a.m. over here in the UK when on Monday or Tuesday morning for me, I was watching Raw and I see you tweet. I was like, right, I've got to try. And
he's up.
He's up. He's up. Yeah, exactly that. Just touching on wrestling a little bit. 2023, I don't know how much wrestling that you watch now or whether you keep in touch with it. I know obviously you have clicked this with Kevin Nash, but if you do watch it, what is your feelings on the product in 2023?
I don't, as much as I can avoid it, I try. But as you mentioned with the podcast, there is sometimes topical stuff that we have to cover. So I have to jump in and I have to look at what we're talking about. It's not to say I don't occasionally put it on. I flirt with it sometimes, and it's just more difficult to for the product to hold my attention than it used to be. Maybe that's more of a commentary on me than it is on the product. I'm not crapping on the product. I'm just I'm not as intrigued. Now, that's not to say when something different happens or something where they do kind of find that that vein where they can hook in an audience. I'm very pleased by that because I mean I want nothing more than to be able to watch and enjoy and be surprised every week, and like it used to be, the unpredictability and not necessarily the same 10 faces again and again for years and years and years. I'd like to be surprised. So when it happens, or they do something cleverly, or there's an angle that shows ultimate respect to the fans, that's cool. I'll get on board with that. You mentioned the Todd is God book, which of course covers ECW, and that was what got me back into watching wrestling, was ECW, and the fact that I was in college at the time, so I felt that they were talking to the smart fan. The way they booked, the things they did in the ring that were truly unpredictable. I really felt that they knew their audience and they were speaking to us. They booked intelligently, and I mean it was the reason ECW succeeded, is because Todd and Paul were so smart, and they knew their fan base.
Yeah, definitely. I spoke to Shane Douglas at length about ECW. He was on the show quite recently. He was kind of going into that same thing. But Sean, do you think nowadays there's too much of it as well?
Too much wrestling?
Too much content, yeah.
Well, that's tough. There is a lot of content, but you know what? In the late 90s, in the Attitude Era, you had promotions with multiple shows per week.
Yeah.
And there was no brand split. There were different shows. There was a Raw and a SmackDown and a Sunday Night Heat and maybe a pay-per-view and a Saturday Superstars show. Was it called Superstars?
Yeah, there's also Velocity as well, wasn't there, or something like that?
Velocity, yeah. So I mean, there was a ton, and that's just WWE. On the other side, WCW, you had Nitro, you had Thunder, you had Saturday Night. So somehow they managed it.
Yeah.
Wasn't an easy task, of course. And I always, when people talk about, some of the questionable booking with Vince Russo or whoever, I said, listen, these guys were writing 15 hours of television a week. They're not all going to be home runs.
No.
They can have a few pop flies that get caught out. So it's not to say with additional content you can't have interesting programming. However, before you increase the amount of content, you got to make sure you have stuff that can fill it, which we talked about on the show when they announced AEW adding Collision. The question I brought up was, is the roster and all the storylines that deep where you can sustain the two? They've been doing well so far.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. If you're going to expand your hours, make sure you have content.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. Exactly. Let's go straight into Todd is God. I've not got my copy yet, so don't shoot me or go off air now. I will be getting it. I just haven't got around to getting it yet. Let's talk about this. So,
is Amazon UK a problem? Do I need to make a phone call? Is it?
No, I've literally, it's on my phone. It's on my basket. So it will be bought literally once we're off air. I will literally even show you that. I'll even send you the email receipt to show you that I've got it. Let's talk about, how did this even come about?
Todd and I worked on
at
Kayfabe Commentaries.
Yes, an ECW one.
Yeah, we did a timeline.
Yes.
Yeah, and which covered the beginning of the company, and then we did a U-shoot, and in talking after that, some years back, I'm going to say 2017, I first broached the subject of writing a book with him, and we're going to start, and at the last minute, his sister had gotten sick, which was taking up a lot of his time. And I think mentally he was just not in the place to be as forthcoming as you have to be with a book. There's a respect with the reader. You can't go, well, I can't talk about this. If you're expecting them to step into your life, they have to live it. So you've got to be very open. So it didn't happen. But I was all jazzed up to write. So I sat down and I wrote Kayfabe, my first book, because Todd had backed out. So I did that. And then 6 books later, Todd said, all right, I think I'm ready to write a book. So I said, that's fine. Let's do it. I told Todd multiple times when we would talk and he would tell me stories. I'm like, how is this not part of the narrative? There's a very myopic storytelling with ECW, and not all of it's accurate. And I don't even know how some of it came to be, but more than that, there's a ton of omission because people don't know. People don't know the story from the inside, how Todd started it and how Paul got it. And that's the tale of a friendship, a brotherhood, and betrayal. In my mind, in my opinion, and probably yours too, when you read Todd is God.
Yeah, I would have thought so. I've got the other, but I've got Kayfabe, by the way. So I've got the Kayfabe. But saved on that one when you mentioned Kayfabe. When you, it's weird, but when you choose to write a book with someone, obviously you've done a lot of Kayfabes, and we're going to get onto that a bit later. But how do you decipher who would be a good book, if that makes sense?
The first one with Todd was the only one I had discussed co-writing with someone, just because I was fascinated by, I'd been a fan of ECW. And then when I was hearing the truth behind how the company was started, run, and ended, it's like, I can't believe I didn't know this. I can't believe this information isn't available. I can't believe that people don't talk about this. We have to do it. We have to bring it to light. We have to bring it out there. So it wasn't, who do I want to write a book with? It was, I've got to write this book about ECW with Todd. So of course, as we're rounding home plate, or rounding third base toward home plate, and the book is finished, I always bring up a second book to Todd, to which he breaks out in hives immediately. I had to think about who else I had a relationship with. Who else's story, first of all, would I want to tell? I don't think I would want to tell everyone's story, just from a kind of a selfish standpoint, that if I don't feel that there's something transcendent or unique or different, maybe their story's been told enough. So Sean Waltman came to mind, and we're doing his book together now. My knowing him from all the times working with him on Kayfabe and just being in his presence socially, I knew there was a very interesting life story there. And I didn't even know the half of it, let's just say. I knew enough to ask him. But now that we're knee deep in this thing and we're 80,000 words in, I had no idea how much he had to overcome. If anyone truly had 9 lives in this business, it was him. So we're working on that. Hopefully the next book.
That's the next one. I can't even wait to get that one already. There's been touted already the success, and it's only been out very briefly. Has it even surprised you how successful the book's been?
No, because I knew that it was full of blockbusters. It was full of information that people would talk about. So I think there's going to be a huge word of mouth life to this book, in addition to the promotional work we did beforehand. That the initial release, that's all your promotional work, right? Yeah. So the first weekend of a movie, the first week of a book, that's all the hype that you've drummed up. Where it goes from there speaks to the quality of the product. Is there going to be word of mouth? Will the reviews carry it? Will people who maybe didn't want to pick it up, or it didn't land on their radar, will they now want to get it? So that's where we are now. I'm eyeballing the next run. The opening was great, #1 bestseller, both on the wrestling books list on Amazon, as well as wrestling biographies. So now we look to see what the road is after. The audiobook, which will be a big bump, is coming out on August 15th. And I narrated that. So if you'd like me to tell you a story about triumph and betrayal, a Shakespearean tale of triumph and betrayal, Todd is God will be on audiobook on your favorite platform on August 15th.
There we go. And that's a good hit. Before I say, where else can the book be purchased?
Well, you can get the bound copy, any of the outlets that you like. They're in the Barnes & Noble stores. They're online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target.com, Books A Million, wherever you buy your books, they'll get you your Todd is God.
There we go. So please go and do it. I was going to anyway, but now I'm definitely going to get it. I was a big ECW fan growing up as well. So although in England it was very difficult to get over here, it was on a station that's now defunct called Bravo. It used to be on about 3 a.m. and was about a month behind.
Oh,
so it wasn't the best. But I've caught up since, obviously. But it was.
What time? You see in the U.S. what happened? It's outlined in the book. It was first they were on local cable in Philadelphia. Yeah. Then they got a deal with Sports Channel Philadelphia, and then something called Sports Channel America, which was like the syndicated version of Sports Channel Philadelphia. So they would end up on very random spots throughout the dial and in odd times on cable. Then they secured MSG Network in the New York area and Sunshine Network in Florida, which made it a little easier to find. But what really made it were the tape traders at the time. In the pre-streaming internet era, people would go online and post their wrestling collections and trade tapes all over the world. Todd tells a story in the book that when they got an order for 25 DVDs, VHS tapes actually, from Japan, he said, how's anyone even seeing us in Japan? This has to be a rib. And it was the tape traders over there who wanted the ECW content. So listen, if you make someone a fan, they're going to find it no matter what, whether it's easy to find on the dial or difficult and they have to go to the tape trading websites and message boards. They will find it.
Yeah. They will. I loved EC. I got. I was a big ECW mark back in the day. I wish I could see it. I wish I could have seen it more, not as more live and over here as much as obviously what they're bringing it over nowadays.
Yeah.
But there we go. Unfortunately, that's just wasn't possible, shall we say? And then when WWE absolutely tarnished the shit out of it when they brought it back.
Well, I mean, that was just
the shits.
Todd's theory was that Vince was so annoyed. Well, this is fact that Todd would get Vince would get very annoyed when the crowd would chant ECW in a WWE arena.
Yeah,
which happened anytime someone pulled out a table.
Yeah,
baseball bats, anything. So, in order to kill that, he had to kill the company. So Todd felt that his purchasing it and putting a zombie on in the first match was the kill shot right there. You know, for anyone who thought ECW's cool, look at this. We're gonna put zombies on. But you know what? They didn't buy it. They still chant it now. A couple months ago when Paulie was in the ring doing a promo with Roman Reigns in Philly.
And they're gonna say, and they're doing WrestleMania in Philly. Shit.
You'll certainly hear it.
No, come on. Let's be real about it. Do you think they'll put him in the Hall of Fame in Philly, Heyman?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure they will. I don't know if it'll be this round. It would make sense. But
do you think they'll do would it be feasible like a Dreamer or someone just because of where they are and the nostalgia around it?
Yeah, I don't really know the logic of their selection process anyway, so I couldn't tell you who would be a better. I could tell you who I think would be a good choice, but I don't know how they do that. But
I think they just put it out a bit of paper, didn't they? It's just some of the names that are in it before other people are. I mean, Demolition are not in it, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, no, right, yeah.
You know, but that's
I don't know how much has to do with. There's a bunch of stuff too, like who's got an old grudge with the company that they don't want to give the shine to, like and stuff that shouldn't matter, but it's reality, it's life, it does.
Yeah,
so who knows?
No, I like to think at least one or two of them will go in Philly. It just makes sense, and they deserve it. Let's be quiet.
How great would it be if during Paul's acceptance speech, the Todd is God, Todd is God chant? Not that we'd want to do that to disrupt the show, anyone who's going to be in Philly who reads Todd is God, but wouldn't that be amazing if the Todd is God chant erupted?
I think I need to be teleported there for that moment, because I'm unfortunately going to the Rumble this year, not wrestling.
Oh. So what's the location?
I believe. Well, the Rumble hasn't come out yet, but it's Florida, I believe, is where they're going to be. I can't remember where. But I've done sort of 6 WrestleManias, and with next year being my special 40th birthday. My birthday's always in June, so it never changes, obviously. But it was the one thing I hadn't done, the one pay-per-view I hadn't done that I wanted to do was the Rumble. So it was a case of it's the Rumble. So Philly's out of the equation. I'll do the chant of the Toddy's God, but they won't be in Philly, unfortunately. Let's move on. Kliq this. Listen, we don't discriminate on other podcasts on this channel at all. We love other listening to wrestling podcasts because each and every one of them is different. Kevin Nash has got more than just a wrestler's brain. He's just got a fountain of knowledge, or even his own opinion about things. Does it make it easier to choose Kevin, or did Kevin even approach you about this subject, about doing a podcast?
Yeah, he approached me multiple times, and after some false starts, like we would start to get together on it, and then he would get too busy or whatever it was that separated us. I think our first talks were in early 2018 about doing it, and then we had to put it aside. He was going to do a film here, and he was going to be gone for 6 weeks, and we were just busy with other stuff. And then, like, throughout those 5 years, I'd get the occasional 3 a.m. text, podcast, you and me, talk tomorrow. And we'd talk, or we wouldn't be able to get each other. And you know, it was his son Tristan who kept telling him that the next phase of this for someone like you is going to be a podcast. And he kept encouraging us to do it, or Kevin to do it, and to bring me on. And finally, in 2022, early in the year, Kevin reached out. He said, it's now or never. It's got to happen now. And so that's when we got serious about it. I had dipped my toe in the podcast world with a solo podcast, just to learn the business, really, to learn how they worked, and how much I hated it. And it's very difficult not being in the room with somebody when you interview someone. Like, this is so much more difficult.
Yes.
This sounds like spiritual crap, but like, I can't feel your energy. You don't know that you're safe with me if you're on my show. That was all stuff that during the Kayfabe Commentaries era, that was, I think, one of the reasons we succeeded, and maybe it was my superpower a little bit. Everybody's got a superpower, right, with what they do, and maybe mine was that, like, that making someone feel at ease and safe and able to open up, and then we can sift through whatever comes up together. Very hard to do online, very impossible to do on the phone. For the interviews that when I had my solo podcast, and people would want to do the interview on the phone and not on, in the pre-pandemic, people weren't so adept at going online, especially anybody with an AARP card. It wasn't a thing for a lot of people. So very hard to connect with someone digitally.
Yeah, it is. I mean, but you managed to find Van Damme's Zen all right doing the U-shoot, though. You didn't get to pick a hand, did you?
No, it's funny you mentioned it. That is something that he would probably talk about, the energy. Yeah. I feel your energy, and, it puts me at ease. So I'll open up about pick a hand. Yeah, I mean, but he's not, if he was to say that, he would not be wrong. No,
definitely not. How difficult was it, obviously, approaching this subject with a bit of when Tristan passed? Because it seemed, I mean, obviously I've watched the show religiously, and I still do to this day. You can tell the effect, even when it come back. Kevin, and even yourself, you were both still really. How difficult was it to keep it going? Because he seemed to be the glue. And as you kind of mentioned it there, he was the glue that sort of kept this thing together when Kevin was so busy.
Yeah. Well, when it happened, my brain was split onto two tracks. There was the humanity of it, and Kevin and his wife and Tristan, who I'd come to know and admire very much, and the work part of it, where Kevin has largely entrusted a very big part of his legacy and current existence with this podcast to me, and I didn't want it to fizzle, but I certainly needed to avail him enough time to do anything that he needed to do. So I got on the phone and I talked to the people at Podcast Heat Network, and what can we get in place? It was a Wednesday, and we shoot on Wednesdays. It was a Wednesday morning, so I said, let's get some best ofs cut. We were only on the air a few months, but whatever content we could chop together while I looked for maybe a replacement for a couple of weeks if Kevin needed it, whatever he needed. I hadn't talked to him about the podcast plan. I talked to him about what was going on in Tristan, and that I didn't have the conscience to bring up.
No, of course not.
Yeah. But I get a text from him at about 5:00 p.m. and he says, I didn't get a link for the show tonight. I said, Kevin, you're not working tonight. I said, we're not going to do anything this week. I said, just take care of everything. I'll handle this. And he said, I need the world to hear from me about my son. And I was so glad he put it that way. Because if he tried to do like a have to do it, have to push through, I would have probably encouraged him not to. But in that context, that I've put myself out there, we have all these people that, 1 million people that listen a month or watch. They need to hear this from me, not the news, not whatever spin some website's going to put out. I want to tell them my story about my boy. I said, okay. And when we went forward with the show that week, it sent a signal to everyone that this podcast is going to be different. It's going to be about real life, not just wrestling, not just fooling around like we do, joking around. It was going to be all of it. There's a realistic element to that show, and I think that's why listeners and viewers connected with it, because Kevin bared his soul and said, I'll go through this with you guys, and we'll have good weeks and we'll have bad weeks. We'll have days where we're joking about something insignificant or trivial, and then I'll remind everyone that today was Tristan's birthday, and that's real life. And so I think that made the show very different. But I definitely took the cue from Kevin. If he needed time, he would have had time. But the fact that and Tristan was part of the show too.
Yeah.
So keeping it going was kind of tribute also. So I was on board for whatever he wanted to do.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I do remember that show very, very well. I mean, I've got a 9-year-old. I'm not as old as Kevin. I've got a 9-year-old son, and I can't even. You always expect them to outlive you. So to have, and I know that when I even lost my sister, so my mum still alive, and she lost her daughter before she hasn't passed yet. Still, thank God. But even then, just the thought of me not even seeing my son is just. That blows my mind, and the fact that he'd gone there and done that. Look, it's testament to him as well. He didn't, as you say, he could have taken all the time that he needed, but he wanted to everything from him, which I think is very admirable in that situation. Just sort of moving away from that a little bit, not necessarily moving away from Kliq This. Obviously, Kliq This. How did that, as part of the name? Obviously, with Gary and Kevin Nash was part of the Kliq, and this because you can click this. Was it just as simple as that, or
that was it? It was the first name that came to mind 6 years ago when we first talked about it. I mocked up a logo. I sent it to him, and we never discussed changing it. You could do a million things with the word Kliq, especially on clickbait. We could have called it, but it just seemed like the attitude of the click this, you want to click something, click this. So it just seemed to fit. It was fun. It kind of had the right attitude, and it will hopefully live on in the cultural zeitgeist, as Raven liked to say.
I can't wait to we got Raven coming on. I want to say, I think he's having shoulder surgery soon. So I think it's not long after that. Again, wrestling minds. I will just sit there. We had one recently when I had Shane Douglas on, and I was just literally like that, because the mind, the story, he can literally take you to the 1990s into a locker room, tell you where the restrooms are, tell you where the vending machines were. He was sitting there, he was wearing this, she was wearing that. It captivates me when you can get somebody like that with that mind, and it just blows me away.
He's coincidentally enough, he is somebody that I had very cursory discussion about a book with some time ago. Like any interest in writing one? Just because I think he's such an interesting guy. Though now that I think about it, he probably wouldn't allow me even to write it. He would be pushing me off the keyboard and trying to reword, put a few more syllables into each word. Scotty is one to do.
Oh, yes.
I think he's an interesting guy. His childhood, I covered it extensively in an episode of Breaking Kayfabe. coming up as the son of the editor of the National Enquirer, the #1 supermarket checkout line dirt rag in the United States for decades, and just that existence. And of course, the son of the editor of the National Enquirer would go into wrestling. Of course, he would go into professional wrestling. Everything's a work.
That's right. Of course, that was outstanding when I'm really. Just quickly, last thing on Kliq This. Where can people find it? When's it on? And you've got a service, a monthly billing service.
Yeah, we're on every podcast outlet from Apple to Spotify, to iHeartRadio. There's also the video component of it on YouTube. If you search out Kliq This, you can check out the video element of it, and there is the KliqThisTV.com. That's KliqThisTV.com. Kliq is KLIQ, by the way, which is the subscription service where you can get the show early without commercials. And then once a month we do an episode of Nash and Friends where we have a guest come on. We've not done guests on the regular podcast, very much by design. And my God, the two of us, you can't get us off the air sometimes. So to have a third person there would be a nightmare. But we do it on Nash and Friends, which is part of KliqThisTV.com. So we've had Kevin Sullivan on, X-Pac, and we're booking the August guest right now.
Well, keep your ears to the ground on that one, and you'll know who it is very soon. Right. Got a couple of random wrestling questions from my team. We do have a couple of other members in the team. Andy, who's sunning himself in Spain at the moment, so that's why he's not on this evening, has asked two quite random questions. When you watched wrestling, what was your favorite wrestling entrance theme music?
Let's see. I think that the biggest pop I ever saw anyone get was always when Austin's glass break would hit. Yep. I mean, just because he was so over, and whatever was about to happen was going to be off the chain.
Yeah.
So that pop was big. I loved the era before the custom music was being made by each federation, where existing music would be chosen. When Junkyard Dog would come out to Another One Bites the Dust.
Yeah.
Road Warriors would come out to Iron Man by Black Sabbath. Hogan used Eye of the Tiger before they wrote the Real American for him. So, I mean, I loved that era when people would choose their own popular music to come out to. Those are three great ones right there. Iron Man.
Yeah.
What did I say? Survivor, Eye of the Tiger, and Queen. Another One Bites the Dust. Two Brits for you there.
Two Brits flying the flag for us always. Funnily enough, there's a Scottish wrestler. I don't know if you used to watch TNA or Impact, called Grado, and he comes out to a Madonna track, and I can't
What's his gimmick?
He's just typical Scottish person, basically.
Scottish background dancer for.
Yeah, he's definitely not one of them. Definitely not. If you could, I tell you what, I try not to insult him too much, but if you put like a Eugene, a Scottish version of Eugene, but he isn't in that way. But he's just a comedy wrestler.
Okay, you'd have to be, right, if you're coming out to
Madonna.
Like a Virgin.
He's exactly the song. So
oh, was it? Okay.
I think, yeah. And,
I would choose, or maybe Dress You Up. That might be a good entrance. Opens with that bass line. I don't know. I'll think about it.
Yeah, think about that. But he may be. I don't know. There is rumors that he is. It's Like a Prayer. Sorry, he's theme anyway from Madonna. But there is rumors that he may have a match with Jeff Jarrett at the AEW UK show. So if he does, there you go. You keep an eye out. The other question Andy asked: instead of wrestling music, what about the presentation of the entrance? What was your favorite entrance presentation?
Well, yeah, I mean, now it's like the entrance ramp and there's goddamn pyro, and I guess like if you need that, you know, you have it now. But the entrance of a wrestler was pyro enough sometimes. When Hogan came out, there was that anticipation. You knew it was the main event. The heel would be announced. They're pacing the ring. And then there's that hush because everyone's waiting for the opening chords of Eye of the Tiger. And when they hit, you didn't need the fireworks.
No.
The place was the fireworks, the explosive adulation from the crowd. So, I mean, so if that's what you're talking about, I always preferred that to shoving fireworks down my throat with this very unexciting talent.
Yeah.
Now I have to sit there and watch the lights go down and the fireworks go off, and it's still an unexciting talent walking out. Thank you for the show, but listen, how could the original iteration of the Undertaker, when the lights would go down, and no one was doing that stuff at the time. No. So when the lights would go down, the gong would hit. That was great.
Yeah, that was exactly what he put the Undertaker, the old school Undertaker, not like, you know, but the 1991 version or that 90s version where he was.
Yeah, now any jobber would get that.
Yeah, literally
get that entrance. But
yeah,
when they would turn the lights down and he and Paul Bearer would come out and he was in like the green light, and it was very effective.
It was. I love that. And he was my favorite as well. Presentation Undertaker's just the old school Undertaker. Let's move on to probably the bit that I'm really looking forward to the most, because I've got a load of DVDs upstairs of Kayfabe, or the Kayfabe Vault, we might as well call it now, because that's what it is. You've had some really interesting guests over the course of time. Honky Tonk Man and his weird choice of vodka, which you had to go to the deepest, darkest place of the earth to try and find. You did have Buff Bagwell, who was tired and couldn't.
Tired.
Yeah, we had him on. He was fine, but
I think it's a different Marcus today than
when it was back then.
I think today you get Marcus. I got Buff.
Yeah,
I think today you get Marcus.
You got Marcus, yeah, and obviously Conan, who stiffed you for some money.
I'd love to meet him.
Yeah. But you've also had some really intense program. The one with Roddy Piper always got me, and I don't know if it was the way that he would present, the way that he would talk when he was doing it. Even the Marty Jannetty one, although, as you know, Marty may not have been in the best of places, but just the way that come across was just absolutely incredible for both of those ones.
And again, that I will go back to what I said before: being in the room and being able to give off some energy to somebody, like a line. How do you manipulate the line? And manipulate sounds like a terrible word, and I mean it not in a deceptive way, but how do you work the line to draw somebody out? And I think part of it was just knowing that they were safe and that we were about content, not to smear anyone, and weren't out to do anyone dirty. We just wanted the best content possible. Anyway, so that's that in person, and I don't think any of those shows would have been what they were if they were done like this. No, I know there are people that do full shoot interviews, like basically what we used to do then, now online, and there's no chemistry between everyone, and it's not a host's fault. There can't be, because of this box we're using here. So there's no in-person chemistry to them. They're largely just recitations of facts of someone's career. They're not as interesting or have any of those personal spellbinding moments that shows did when we were sitting 3 feet from someone, and they could, if they wanted to, grab me by the throat or cry on my shoulder. I certainly would have preferred the latter. But anyway, that excitement, that energy, that immediateness came through in the interviews, like you're saying.
Yeah, the other one, even though the other one wasn't necessarily because it was intense, but it was just the person, was the New Jack one. The timeline, and I think you done a U-shoot as well. I'm sure
we did a U-shoot. We did a timeline. We also worked with him. What's that?
Did you do a breaking kayfabe with him?
We did a breaking kayfabe. It was the first. It was the first one we shot.
Yeah,
was New Jack, and this has never been aired. I think I talked about it in the books. I don't know why we did this. The first part of breaking kayfabe was to be the sit down discussion with the person about them off camera. That was the crux of that show. All of Kayfabe Commentary shows were themed, and the Breaking Kayfabe series was talking to somebody about their past, their childhood, what happened in wrestling outside the ring. So again, there are people that are better for a show like that with more interesting or checkered pasts. So New Jack certainly fit the bill. And then what we did, God, I can't remember why, but what we did, the second half of it, for each person was going to be a segment cultivated to them. And for New Jack, we shot the show that you all viewed. And then the second part of it was, if you've ever seen Saturday Night Live when they do the weekend update, the phony newscast,
yeah.
It was me doing the straight man in the newscast with New Jack, who would comment on the news items that I brought up. I guess we just thought it would be so off the wall, and we shot it. There's 20 minutes of footage, which we should put out there someday of the New Jack newscast. The second one was the second one we shot was Sean Waltman, and his second segment was going to be, I guess because Sean was known for ribs a little bit back in the day.
Yeah.
We were at a convention, and we were going to print out, one of the guys on the crew somehow, or one of the workers shared with us a picture of Knobs mooning. And I think I want to say he had a can of beer up his ass, wedged halfway up his ass. So we wanted to get the hotel to make 8x10s of that, and to have Sean go online and say, "Hey man, what's up? I haven't seen you. I just want to get some pictures signed, for my friends of you," and to drop that on the table and to film Knobs's reaction. They couldn't get the pictures made, or they refused to make them, whatever it was. So that never happened.
That would have been absolutely priceless, because Sean was the one. It wasn't Sean was the one that when they done his figures, he had his eyebrows.
Yes, the eyebrows were gone. They were shaved. Yeah. That story's in the book.
That was hilarious. Because the other breaking kayfabe that I remember, you kind of had a heart-to-heart with Cornette, because you had kind of fallen out a bit of unintentionally fallen out over Russo, wasn't it? Because he had done a show, and I think you had kind of mentioned they'd done like a credits or a prologue was going to come out, and I think it was like, if someone's going to come on the show, who would it be? And it kind of described Cornette. Yeah,
we were shooting some promo stuff for it, and one of them was a sit-down interview, just a 5-minute of what's to come on your You Shoot Live. Vince Russo had been in TNA. Books were written about him, how he ruined WCW, and now finally, who would be the ultimate You Shoot guest? The lightning rods, the things that fans talk about all the time. Well, the whole premise of You Shoot was, well, here you go. You have the microphone. You have the floor. You've been busy talking about these people. Dixie Carter did a live You Shoot because she was the focus of such criticism. Well, she was there, and she said, well, give it to me. Well, what do you have? And we did. We played almost everything we got for her. So in the promos for the Russo one, I asked him, and it was not scripted. I said to him, do you expect to see anyone from the business either send a question or show up and ask you a question? And Vince Russo, correctly, because all the public heat, said, I expect a certain person who carries a tennis racket to probably have something to say. And you know what? He might have. Yeah. So we aired the promo, and Jim saw it and thought we were like promoting that he was going to come, which wasn't the case. But he didn't talk to me about it. He just went off on his rant, and he put out some statement and told people not to buy it. That was the thing I had an issue with. If he doesn't like Vince, he doesn't want to participate, wants to tell the public he's not going to participate, that's fine. But when he was like, I encourage everybody not to buy this, I was like, well, hold on. Why? It's going to be entertaining. Isn't this about entertainment? And you're a goddamn producer, Jim. You know why I'm asking Russo to come on. You would have done the same thing if you were in my position.
Yeah.
So then we put out a statement right after that, which I think closed out with like, still in all, we accept Jim for who he is and love him nonetheless. To which Jim replied, "You made me sound like the goddamn retarded uncle at the barbecue." Which I was proud.
It was brilliant. I mean, some of the questionable names that have come up during those questions, like the Horsecock Express and Dusty's Ghost was the one that absolutely, like, I could never believe that when that come up. That was
the thing with You Shoot that was so wonderful, that I was completely off the hook.
Yes.
The fans did all the damage. I was the messenger. I read the question, I fielded the answer, and I moved the show along. If Dusty's Ghost, if anyone thought that was in bad taste, it wasn't me. HBK's Lazy Eye,
yeah.
Questions. That was not me. I had nothing to do with the Horsecock Express. God love him. Was not me. So.
RBD does a great impression of Shawn Michaels' Lazy Eye.
I think that was on our show.
It was.
Again, wasn't me. So
it wasn't Shawn. No, Shawn is absolutely not guilty of any charges.
I'm off the hook.
Off the hook. You played some questionable games, shall we say, on that show. We had the dick bag for the guys for whichever was a dick. You had the hoe bag for the people that was a hose.
Equal opportunity offenders. Yes.
Equal opportunities. Yeah. You also had the wrestler's gym bag, which was always entertaining. Some of the props they used. I think one of your little things that you always used to say halfway through was like, "I've got a degree here." It
was a fine time to remind myself that I was putting college to work as I pulled fake cocaine out of a bag and held it up to New Jack.
You were trying to get into it, wasn't he?
Yeah, you know what? He tried to open that bag. He almost broke a finger trying to get into the gimmicked cocaine bag. Yes.
That is crazy. One of the games you played is word association. So I think it's quite fitting that we start rounding the show off with you playing the game for a change.
Okay.
You used to ask the wrestlers, I'm going to give you a name of the wrestler, and you tell me the first word or phrase that comes into your head when I mention Z name. Triple H.
All right, so we're going to bear in mind that I may not have met some of these people.
Absolutely.
So my impression is very much an outsider, like the first name you brought up.
Yeah.
Worthy.
Kevin Nash.
A lot of people could have gotten that position.
Yep.
Given a family situation, but it certainly went to somebody who could have done it regardless of who they married or what family they entered. So I would say deserving.
Kevin Nash. Careful with this one, obviously. He may
waiting for my call is no. Complicated.
Interesting. Shawn Michaels. He's a name that crops up quite regularly on yours.
Oh, total package. I mean, Jesus. What he was for that time period. Well, you just wanted one word, so I'll say total. Can I hyphenate total package?
Yeah, no, I said word or phrase, so you're fine.
Yeah,
you're fine.
No, superstar. That's better. Superstar. He was the quintessential major player in that company when the business became what it was. They couldn't go with the jacked up steroid monsters anymore because of what was happening in the news and everything. So they needed someone with a natural build who could be as charismatic as a Hogan and draw like a Hogan. And man, was he that.
He was indeed. He certainly was.
The microphone, in the ring, everything. The whole.
He had it. Yeah, he definitely had everything. Shawn definitely had everything. Mick Foley.
Passionate.
Yeah.
Passionate. People call him crazy. I don't think he's crazy. And I don't think he's got a death wish. I think he's so goddamn passionate about wrestling. And, no one was going to confuse him for Lex Luger when he walked in a ring, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So he had to use what he had. And what he had was that fearlessness, a massive ass that he could land on the concrete with and drop elbows off the apron. So he took what he had and used it to maximum effect because he was so passionate about the business, about being a wrestler. Passionate.
I'll never forget the story that Cornette told on your he was doing 97 timeline. He was doing the street. Yeah. Foley walks out. And he didn't show up on Raw or something the next night.
Oh yes, no, I forgot about that. I've forgotten more than I remember.
Next one, Shane Douglas.
You know what? I love Shane. Shane's one of those guys I love as a person. I like spending time with him. There's a handful of guys in the business, like Nash was before we did the show, Kevin Sullivan, Shane Douglas. I always liked the time we spent talking about other things. Like I would talk to Shane about his time as a teacher. I talked about his son a lot. I got to meet his son. I let him host a segment of Wrestling's Most was a countdown show, a Kliq show that we did, and I would read the countdown, and he was in the room. So I said to Shane, I said, I'll let him direct the segment. So he was probably 8 at the time. I had him read the questions, and great guy. I have to do one word. I can't say great guy. A mensch.
Great guy's fine. Word.
Mensch. I'll borrow from my my Italian friends. Mensch.
We got a couple more, then we'll start rounding up. Sean Waltman.
Pure.
Yeah, that's a good word. That's a good word.
His love for wrestling, pure. His commitment to wrestling, pure. The seriousness with which he took wrestling, pure. His willingness to criticize himself, pure. His having overcome so much of what he overcame is because he's one of those guys that has a heart of gold, and he never looks to baby face himself or blame others. He's pure.
And the last one, Vince Russo, as we spoke to him.
Listen, I have gone on record 10 million times as first of all, one of the few people that had great working relationships with Vince Russo and Jim Cornette.
Yeah, I can only know one. I've only spoke to Russo. I've had Russo on, not.
I enjoyed working with them equally. I appreciated their individual gifts, very different gifts, but Vince Russo, workhorse,
definitely.
Workhorse,
definitely
24/7. One of those guys that is now he's got the podcast network.
Yeah,
he is nonstop working on it, growing it from the first time he started it, from the first month he started it to what he's made it. When he was in WWE, you can agree with his decisions or say his booking was trite or shit or whatever you want. He dove into that, and he was fully committed. He was that guy that, when you worked for Vince, if you got the phone call Saturday at 2:00 in the afternoon about to take your kids into the movie theater, you answered that phone. Yeah. And if Vince said we're working, you left and you went to Vince's. And when I say Vince, I mean McMahon. Yeah. So Vince Russo was a soldier in that game and wrote that copious amount of television that I outlined earlier, those 12, 14 hours a week. And was one of the hardest working guys in that company. His success was due to that he was so workhorse.
Yep, that is a very good word. Sean, we're going to wrap up, so thanks so much for your time. But before we do, tell everybody the Kayfabe Vault. Where can they get it? Where is it?
Yeah, all that great Kayfabe commentary stuff that we talk about is still available. It's the Kayfabe, the KC Vault, best of the KC Vault on YouTube. We put some free stuff up in its entirety every month, like half the internet does. Puts up our free content all the time, which is good. I was happy to have built the WWE network for them, allowing them to watch our stuff. But anyway, so we do upload some free stuff, and but there is the premium subscription, which gives you access to the vault, and you could watch 1,000 hours of stuff we have again and again, and it's all the replayability of all that kayfabe commentary stuff is off the charts. People tell us they've watched stuff 10 times, and those timelines are so educational that it doesn't get old. So go check out Best of the KC Vault on YouTube.
Please do. And that is going to be a wrap for us this evening. Sean, it's been fascinating to talk to you about the kayfabe stuff, the Kliq, this, the book, everything. I can't thank you enough for taking your time out of your day to come and just talk to little old me about it. It was, it's been very. I had a list when I first come onto the podcast. Andy, my co-host Andy said, write a list down of people who you'd want on, and we had like wrestlers and wrestling personalities. And you were right near the top of the wrestling personalities list. So I can cross you off now, and having this time with you has been.
My God, I can't imagine who's below me. What referees, what popcorn vendors are below me. Good luck with them, though, as you pursue your list.
Thank you. But sure, no, honestly, it's been fantastic for me to sit with here for an hour and have this discussion with you today. But guys, this has been the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. He has been Sean Oliver. I have been your host, Adam Cousins. And until next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe, and goodbye.